Hello, this is James Barkell and you are listening to the Coach Doctor podcast. In this episode, I talk with Andrew Murphy. Andrew is a triple Olympian representing Australia in track and field as a triple jumper at the Atlanta, Sydney and Athens Games. More recently, Andrew was attending his first Olympic Games as a coach, travelling to Tokyo to coach Australia's fastest man, Rohan Browning. In this interview, Andrew discusses the differences of travelling to an Olympics as an athlete and as a coach, and explains some of the intricacies of training for speed events. One of the key takeaways for me are the comments around training as a squad or a team, and the uncanny similarities to what Sean Irvine described as the requirements for an effective team in our previous episode. Andrew is a lifelong learner, and despite all of his experiences of going to 3 Olympics and countless other World Championships, as an athlete and now as an Olympic coach, he still wants to keep on learning to get better through both tertiary education and other methods of learning. I'm sure you will learn a lot from this interview with the man in the track and field industry, commonly referred to as Murph. Andrew, thanks for joining me today on the Coach Doctor podcast. You've just returned from the Tokyo Olympics. Tell me where you are and a bit about quarantine for those of us who are unsure.
Brisbane at the moment at the lovely Stanford Plaza Hotel,
Nice.
overlooking the water. I think it's called Story Bridge that I'm looking at. So,
Yeah. Are
look
you allowed out of the room or?
no.
You're just in a room non-stop.
They've got CTV television, like
Wow.
looking down at the doors, and yeah, you can open the door to get your food. That's about it.
Okay. Jeez.
But yeah, it's pretty full on actually. That's the process at the moment, so I just got to deal with it.
Wow, that must be tough. Andrew, you've been to 4 Olympics, 3 as an athlete, and now as a coach in Tokyo. Tell me a little bit about some of the differences around the experience from going as an athlete and as a coach.
Yeah, I guess the biggest one really is when you're an athlete, it's all about you effectively.
Yeah.
And then when you're a coach, it's not at all about you. It's all about the athlete, which is fair enough. It's the athlete's journey. My role as a coach is I'm a support network. I'm a support staff, basically. So, we work as a team, obviously, but at the end of the day, it's about the athlete. So my job is to obviously be a sponge and learn as much as I can and to help the athlete become better. And be the best coach I can be. So that's why, as I said, I've gone back and done a master's and always constantly researching, trying to make sure that I'm, I guess, looking at things in a lot of different ways so that I can hopefully get the best outcome for the athletes.
So you're constantly trying to improve as a coach by learning new theories and new ideas, not just around the technical aspects of your sport, but also around the nuances of, for example, building strong relationships and team building.
Yeah, look, it's a myriad of things, really. I mean, the process of having successful athletes is not just on the training track, as you said. There's, looking at internal and external loads. There's the whole psychological component to it. There's, the lifestyle balance, there's a myriad of things that go into successful sports people. It's not just one thing. And often it requires a network of people. So, obviously I'm the coach, but, I rely heavily on, the physio, the masseur, the sports psychologist, and the list goes on. So,
you're managing all those different aspects of the athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. So you juggle all those things, and obviously that is what dictates what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So rather than having a stringent program that you follow, it's flexible. It has to be. It has to be movable with the times and each situation and the environment. And as we're seeing now with COVID, you have to be able to be flexible.
Yeah, definitely.
And change and move with the times. And obviously that's been really important. And the athletes that have been able to do that have obviously shown that, the performances have been amazing.
Andrew, you were a brilliant triple jumper and now you coach jumping events and sprint events. How much difference is there in training a sprinter from a long jumper or a triple jumper?
Oh, look, I mean, there's definitely distinct differences, but, there's also a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
So to be a really good sprinter, you do need to have some basics in terms of plyometric development, and making sure that mechanic is as efficient as possible will reduce ultimately your injuries.
Yeah.
And plyometrics are a great form of power development. And let's face it, you can create up to 12, 13, 14 times body weight doing plyometrics. So you can't apply that type of force in the gym.
Mm.
You can't squat like, a ton.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not going
Yeah.
to happen. Whereas, up on the track, you can do plyometrics and you can create that type of stress.
Yeah.
So it's really important, as far as I believe, that athletes at a young age should be developed in that regard to plyometric development, really working on their mechanics, getting it as efficient as possible when they're young and they're light,
Yeah.
because it
Okay.
gets a lot harder as you develop, as you get more muscle. You're obviously heavier, so then you're creating more load, and there's more chance of injury. So I actually think the two are very similar. Obviously, the differences are, a triple jumper, for instance, has, a lot more technical modeling in that specific area of triple jump. So
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
that hop and step and so forth. But, a triple jumper has to be hitting over 11 meters per second on the runway
Yeah.
if they're going to have any chance of, being a 17-meter jumper.
Yeah. Okay.
So speed is essential, obviously, ingredient to success in triple jumping, and obviously speed is everything in sprinting. So I think they really do go hand in hand, and I actually coach a lot of horizontal jumpers and also sprinters.
Yeah.
It's been really successful as a result.
Thanks for that, Andrew. I want to talk about some of those athletes you're coaching later, but first I recall working at the same gym as you and your athletes over the years, and as a former stocky rugby player, I recall thinking I could outlift these guys any day of the week. However, I recall watching in amazement how technically proficient and strong you and your athletes were in the Olympic lifts, such as the power clean and the snatch. How important are these exercises for track and field athletes, such as sprinters and jumpers?
Oh, look, at the end of the day, I mean, we're looking at trying to do obviously fast lifts if we can in the gym,
Yeah,
obviously depending on the time of the year. So, if you're in general preparation, you'll still be doing your Olympic lifts, but, the focus might be more on developing maximal strength. Um, and then obviously as you develop through that specific preparation and into competition, you're looking more at that power and really trying to work more on a velocity-based form of training.
yeah,
So, we might not necessarily be trying to lift overly heavy, but we're trying to lift the bar as fast as we can.
yeah,
Um, so that, having an efficient technique is everything in the gym and on the track.
yeah,
At the end of the day, why are we doing all this? Obviously for performance, but also so that athletes don't get injured. So, I guess the big ticket item really is that, you know, having an efficient technical model reduces that potential of getting injured.
yeah. Okay.
So, so I guess a foundation for us has always been cleans and snatch, but we have, we do a lot of different training. Obviously, we do traditional squats, obviously, and deadlifts, RDLs, so forth. But obviously, we also have the cleans and snatch in there, but there's so much to it. That's just a little bit of it. There's all your hamstring protocols that you need, so your eccentric strength, looking at testing those on a Nord board so you can actually see what actually is going on with the athlete and how many newtons they're producing on their
Yeah,
left versus their right leg. So I mean, there's a myriad of obviously things that you have to do.
yeah. Nice. It sounds like I guess especially being an individual sport, you can really delve a lot deeper into some of those aspects. Looking at the right compared to the left hammy and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously trying to run at the speeds that, say, Rowan's running at over 12 meters per second is pretty insane. And, you have to make sure that they're strong enough to do that,
Yeah,
because the first thing that's going to go in a sprinter is their hamstrings.
yeah, definitely,
So,
definitely.
we have to delve into pretty much every muscle group and what type of strength, I guess, protocols do we have to have in place. And
Yeah,
I guess over the last probably 3 or 4 years of my development, it's been heavily weighted towards, that sort of space, and really getting better in that area, and getting a lot of support as well through sports science and so forth has been really important.
Yeah, nice. And I like how you talk about not just the performance or the success of the athlete, but also keeping them healthy and keeping them on track and, rather than letting them break down by overtraining and stuff like that, but just trying to go for that ultimate result. So I guess that's a really important attitude to have when you're training athletes.
Yeah, look, it's always about the process for me. It's not about the end result. I think the end result will come if you get the process right.
Yeah,
So, it's very hard to chase a standard,
yeah,
or chase a world record. You tend to focus on, okay, well, what do I need to do to get that world record?
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
get all of those lined up and let's tick the box on all of those, and then we've got a chance.
yeah, yeah.
So,
You mentioned Rohan Browning. Obviously, he has gained a lot of press and publicity as Australia's fastest man during the Olympics. Tell me what you saw in him as a runner and his progression from going from a naturally fast kid to an Olympic semi finalist.
yeah, look, I mean, obviously it's a long time ago now. It's 8, 9 years ago that Rowan and I started working together. Though I do distinctly remember looking at him thinking, wow, this is an underdeveloped kid. So meaning he wasn't a man child,
Yeah,
where he was, already in a man's body at 14 years of age. He was
yeah,
actually very underdeveloped, was naturally pretty quick, but you could see that he had a naturally good fluidity to his running style, and that really appealed to me. So, I approached him and obviously said, "Would you be interested in coming and doing a bit of sprint mechanics, to work on your running for rugby?" That
yeah,
was really my pitch, and I had no intention for him to not do rugby. I always encourage all of my athletes to do multiple sports. So I think it's really important. Maybe you do specialize as you get a little bit older, but certainly in those foundational years, it's important to do, a number of different sports, whether it be team sports or individual sports.
Mentioning team sports, we often assume that team sports such as football and rugby require more teamwork and coaching. But during the Olympics, we saw a great example of teamwork in an individual event when Cedric Dubler wheeled on Ash Maloney to achieve bronze in the decathlon. How important is the sense of team in individual sports such as track and field?
I mean, teamwork's so important. And I guess how we get teamwork in our environment is that we have training squads, and training squads are a team. So, my elite group, for instance, is now 20 athletes. So that's quite a big team. And we all work together to help each other. And I think that's really important to create a really good environment at
Yeah,
training, and an environment that's supportive. Because without that support and collegiate, that getting together to help each other, it's really hard to have success. So that's something that I've had to obviously work at, and it's something that I talk to our group all the time.
yeah,
I'm always talking to athletes about, we need a positive environment. These are the sort of goals that we're going to put in place to create that environment, and get the best outcomes for the group. The group is a team.
so you would have to celebrate all your athletes' successes. For example, in Rowan, we celebrate his success in qualifying for the Olympic semi-final. But then you might have another up-and-coming athlete who runs a PB at a club or state carnival, and you celebrate their success in just the same way and encourage all of your athletes to get around each other and support each other. Is that something you encourage?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
And, I love the fact that our group, it doesn't matter who you are, like Rowan, as you said, Olympic semi-finalist, but he'll be the first person to text or message, someone in our group. It doesn't matter who they could be. That could be a year 11 boy still at Trinity. And he'll go, "Oh, mate, I saw you did a PB at, the local interclub competition. Fantastic result, mate. Keep it up."
yeah,
They're the sort of things that we really try to work on, and try to, I guess, work together, because that's what creates, really strong teams, really strong groups.
yeah. That's awesome. That's really awesome. In saying that, I've seen a few posts on rugby pages suggesting rugby union should approach someone like yourself um, to work with their athletes. Is coaching outside of track and field something that you'd consider?
Look, I mean, in the past, I have done a little bit of work. I worked for the Bulldogs for a little while, for a couple of years before I actually started at Trinity Grammar School. And I really did enjoy that. So, I think there's maybe a space for that in the future. You never know. But obviously, at the moment, I'm loving what I'm doing. I love obviously working in high performance sport. It's not the easiest thing to do in our country. Obviously, there's not a huge amount of jobs out there for high performance sport in track and field. But hopefully I can keep developing fast guys, and hopefully also can produce some really good horizontal jumpers. Because at the moment, the group that I have, there's some really good talent in there, and obviously we just got to keep working hard to hopefully get to Paris.
Yeah, it's only three years away, so a little
I
bit
know.
closer.
Yeah, it's a lot closer. It's amazing what 1 year does.
Yeah, definitely. Mate, you work as the master in charge of track and field at Trinity Grammar, as well as coaching elite athletes. So tell me how coaching young, developing athletes from, year seven, sometimes even younger, differs from those elite athletes you coach.
Well, they're similar, really, when you look at it. It's all about effort. It's all about, developing, I guess, that passion and love for the sport that you're doing, and making sure that the athlete is involved in the whole process. So actually giving them ownership of some of their decisions.
Yep.
So actually giving them ownership of, okay, this is what training is. How do we want to go about it? What are we trying to achieve here? What areas do you feel as though you could get better in terms of your technical mechanics? So really trying to get that buy-in, that ownership for the athletes is really important for me, because that then creates the stimulus for them to want to improve and then set, goals at each stage. So it's a very similar process, whether it be development or whether it be elite. They both sort of work hand in hand, I believe.
Yeah, okay. All right, we've seen some examples of athlete-coach relationships during the Olympics. So Dean Boxall and Ariane Titmus was one great example of how much it means for a coach to see their athletes do well. In a sport like track and field, where your athletes are all over the place, competing at similar times in different parts of the track, how do you manage to stay connected with them and provide support for them throughout those events?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt it's difficult. I mean, Nationals was a prime example for me, having about 20 elite athletes. I had, I think, 2 athletes competing on the back straight at Sydney Olympic Park Athletic Centre, and in the horizontal jumps. But I had Rowan warming up for the semi-final and final of the 100 on the warm-up track. So I can't actually be at 2 places at once. So, that's obviously challenging, but I also see it as a real positive, because it gives us the opportunity to go, well, you know how to do this, and you can do it without me.
Yeah,
So yes, I maybe put in place some people around Rowan, for instance, on the warm-up track, but ultimately he knows how to warm up. If he doesn't know how
yeah,
to warm up after 8 years, there's a real problem.
yeah, definitely.
So a number of times I try to get my athletes to, I guess, not need me. I don't want my athletes to have me there. I
Yeah,
want them to be able to go off and know that they can be successful without me being around.
yeah, nice. And you talked about empowerment before, so I guess part of that preparation with empowering your athletes prepares them for that situation at their events.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
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 Um, I've got a question from an athlete that I've been working with in the strength and conditioning area. She's a middle distance runner. Her name's Alex Eves, and she'd like to ask you a question as well. Should athletes focus purely on their sport, or is it important to have a second focus as well for more life balance? So when you were an Olympian, how did you manage your training and life balance?
Yeah. Look, I think the balance, that life balance is just so important. Um, I was very fortunate that my career spanned over 20 years competing for Australia, which is rare, certainly as a triple jumper. And I went through obviously a number of times where I was obviously studying and training. Then I was, maybe doing some work and training. Then I decided to just be an athlete full time. So I was just training. And to be honest, the most successful periods in my career were always when I was busy. Now, not so busy that I couldn't actually do the training under recovery, but busy enough to be able to do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
And so that balance is something that, as an athlete and I guess as a coach, you have to sit down and try to really work on what's going to be the best balance for each individual athlete. And it is very individual. It's a little bit like training. There's no one program that fits all. Every athlete is a little different. So you have to, change it up depending on the athlete's abilities and what they can cope with. And the same thing with balance. So you really do need to just find what works for you. It's
Yeah.
difficult to say, oh yeah, do this, this, and this, because everyone's different. So you can't really just prescribe one thing. But what I can prescribe is that you need to find a balance of a number of different things to take your mind off that one big ticket item, maybe. But I mean, in terms of someone like a Rowan, he's a very intelligent guy. So he's at Sydney University. He's studying law. So he, obviously he combines that with, an elite level sort of sports career. And it's just finding, for him, it was finding, okay, how many units can he do a semester without it starting to tip him over the edge?
Yeah.
And, with our training, we're always monitoring, obviously, at this high level. And I try to do it at all levels, but, it's very time consuming doing lots of data. But, we monitor his internal loads through a HRV tracker.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see that over the years of doing that, you can actually see when that gets elevated, it's often because he's got an exam coming up.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
he's more susceptible to getting injured during that period. So we now know that, because of that data, we're able to modify training and reduce the intensities because, there's no point in doing something really fast or high intensity and then he gets injured because he's stressed out about an exam.
Yeah. Wow.
So, these are the sort of things that you really got to sort of look at this high performance end
Yeah.
is,
That's
you just can't go and do a session if you're not ready
yeah.
because
Yeah.
invariably you're going to get injured. And if you get injured, then you're not going to perform.
Yeah. No, that sounds really interesting. That he's got different. That something like an exam brings around sort of stress levels that are
Mm.
potentially could create injuries. So you've got to monitor that training load around, other things that are going on in his life. That's something I'd never really thought of.
Yeah, look, it's something that I've worked on for probably the last 3 years, and it's we've really taken it to another level now, and we pretty much now know we've mapped all the contingencies, so to speak.
Yeah.
But we keep a really strong eye on it all the time. But we definitely know when there's some red lights, so to speak,
Yeah.
in there. And I'm doing it for as many athletes as I can. But it is very time consuming doing that type of data.
Yeah. It would be.
And overlapping it with your training and with your, lifestyle choices.
Yeah. Definitely. So, an athlete such as Rowan or anyone else at that sort of level, what sort of time would they be spending training?
Uh, well, we train 6 days a week,
Yep.
and we'll have in each day there'll be a major session.
Yep.
So that could be anywhere from 3 hours. And then there'll be a secondary session, which will be a minor session, which will be probably more a regenerative or rehab type of a session.
Yep.
So that could be another hour to an hour and a half. And then on top of that, you might also have some therapy thrown in there.
Yep.
So meaning physiotherapy, some dry needling, some sports massage, some, maybe some hot and cold therapies. It could be a number of different things. But
Yeah.
I guess someone at Rowan's level, you're tending to do, most 6 days a week, you're probably doing 2 sessions, one major and, as I say, one minor, which
Yeah.
is more along the lines of a regenerative training session.
And how much time would a sprinter like Rowan spend training at max velocity?
Look, max velocity for Rowan, as I said, he's hit over 12 meters per second, which is unbelievable. There's only probably 3 or 4 athletes at the Olympics in Tokyo that did that. So that's his best area of his sprinting is his max V, max velocity. So in a week, we would do probably only one session in a week that would touch on max velocity.
Yep.
Um, and in terms of the amount of work we'd do with that, you're probably looking at somewhere around 140 to 180 meters
Yeah. Yeah.
of total maximum velocity.
Okay.
So remembering that max V comes in at about 40 meters
Yeah.
and it lasts for approximately 60 meters. So you hold your maximum velocity for about 20 meters.
Yeah. Okay.
So, a big session, 6 to 8 repetitions, sort of in that zone, is all that I ever look at. I think
Yeah.
that if you start going above that, you'll probably find the athlete will start to be more submaximal. So they'll start to reduce, obviously, and that's easily tracked through
Yeah.
timing gates or through a LARBEG or whatever you're using, which we always time everything when we're training. So we can get an understanding of what percentages the athletes are training at, which is really important.
Would spending more time at max velocity also create more issues with injuries?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's high risk, obviously. Anything, whenever you're working on max velocity, it's the highest risk that you've got in the week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the most important session of our week, and it generally will lead from a rest day before it.
Yeah.
So, that's our number one goal is speed.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're going to be as fresh as we possibly can be for that session.
Okay. Thanks. That's interesting. Rohan Browning was a bit of a surprise package to a lot of Australians who do not follow track and field too closely. Do you have any other athletes in any of the other disciplines, sprinting or jumping, that we need to keep an eye on for the future?
Look, I do. And maybe I'm a little biased because obviously they're my athletes, but obviously I can see what they're doing and I can look at how they're tracking compared to, say, Rowan. And so I definitely do have some. I don't
Yeah.
like to name names,
No, that's all right.
like just simply because then that puts pressure on them,
Yeah, no,
and
no, that's all right.
that's not what I want. So I don't want to put added pressures on them. But yeah, certainly we've got some more talent coming.
Well, that's great. Well, we look forward to seeing them. Are there any possibilities for Paris 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. Look,
Yep,
to be honest, I'd be really disappointed if we don't get at least 2 or 3 more for Paris.
yep,
But there's a lot that goes into it, obviously, and obviously we'll have our goals, and we're going to try really hard to achieve those goals. But it's the pinnacle in our sport, obviously, the Olympic Games. So it's I think I can't remember the exact percentages, but it's what 1 in 6 or 700,000 people will make an Olympic Games only.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a pretty hard stat. It's
yeah,
almost
definitely.
it's almost easier winning lotto.
It is, yes, it is. And mate, I don't know if that stat would vary with yourself being a triple Olympian. Does that mean it sort of blows out a little bit more because you've taken two of those 3
Yeah.
spots?
Yeah, I think it probably does obviously get harder to do multiple,
Yeah,
because there's not many people that have obviously represented Australia 3 times in the Olympics.
yeah, yeah,
We're talking an even smaller ratio, so it'd probably go up to 1 in 10 million.
yeah,
Um, you
yeah,
know,
definitely.
that's just the way it is. But yeah, look, I mean, look, anything's possible, but I think the most important thing is, as I said, in terms of a performance perspective, it's staying injury free.
Yeah.
That's a real big key.
Yeah, nice one. Well, it leads me to my final question. And going off your answer to the previous question, don't know if you want to answer it too honestly or give me too much information, but there's a few other Murphys whose names have been popping up around the athletic scene. Do you think there's any of these Murphys we need to keep an eye on for the future who might surpass their father's achievements? And I'm also told your daughter Sienna wants to be the best triple jumper in the family. Any truth to any of those things?
Well, I'd love Sienna to be jumping as far as Rojas. I don't know if you saw Rojas, but she broke the world record at the Olympics in Japan, and she's an absolute beast in all the right ways.
Yeah.
6'4", amazing athlete. And it was just so exciting to actually be able to watch her live break a world record, something that she's been threatening to do for a number of years now. So it was great that she finally did it. In terms of my kids, look, obviously, I just want the best for my kids, as any parent would want. I think they've definitely got potential,
Yeah.
but there's a lot that has to go into potential. Certainly, they're working hard and they love it. Interestingly enough, I've never, said that they had to do it. Obviously, the sport, they've just made their own decisions,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so, I mean, Connor, obviously, my eldest, he got the silver medal at the Nationals just recently, and gained selection to compete for Australia at the World University Games, which sadly was postponed because of
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
So they'll be on again next year. So I certainly think, hopefully there should be no reason that he won't get that exposure. I guess then the next level would be something like a Commonwealth Games, which is on next year, which I think is, definitely there's some potential there for that to happen. And then the year after is the year before the Olympics, and that's the World Champs. So, that would be probably the next pathway. And then obviously the Olympics the following year. So, look, I mean, obviously we're going to put goals in place to try to achieve those type of levels, and I'll certainly be there to help each and every one of them. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll, obviously I would love nothing more than they obliterate every record that I ever set.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's what every parent wants of their kids, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
ultimately, I just want my kids to be happy. So
Yeah.
whatever
Great.
direction they take, it will be all good with me.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Is there much talk about, around the dinner table, around, triple jump technique or running technique, or is it all that saved for training?
Yeah, look, I try to keep it separate. I mean, obviously, we do have some banter around the kitchen or the dining room table, but yeah, look, we pretty much try to talk about a bit of everything. We
Yeah.
we,
Yeah.
we try not to get too caught up in track and field all the time. We try to talk about lots of different things, whether it be rugby, AFL, football, the Olympics in general, politics, whatever it is. We just talk COVID at the moment. That's
Yeah.
all it
Yeah.
seems to be talked about. Every time you put the TV on, it's COVID this and COVID that. But yeah, no, we try to keep it pretty real, and don't get too over the top at home, obviously.
Yeah, no, awesome. That sounds great. And Andrew, just quickly before you go, you're doing a master's at the moment. Just quickly remind me what are you studying, and how long you got to go?
Yeah, look, I'm doing a master's in high performance sport. I made this decision a few years ago that I really wanted to keep improving and obviously keep researching. And it's something that I'd been doing anyway, just always listening to podcasts. And I have a number of mentors that, I go to for me around the world that I'm always talking to. But I just wanted to do something a little bit more formal. And so it gave me the opportunity to, sort of try to expand some different, areas. So I did a master's in high performance sport. So I got a number of different areas I could look at. So it wasn't just say S&C, it was management, it was, physiology, it was biomechanics, it was just a number of different areas. And I've really enjoyed it. And, some of the lecturers have been fantastic. And, I probably would consider even doing a PhD down the track. I think I love researching, and sometimes it's a lot of hard work, and it's a real juggling act when you work full time. I also have the elite group of athletes, and I've got 5 kids of my own. So sometimes it is hard because you're trying to fit everything in, but I just love doing it, and
Yeah.
I love learning, and the more you learn, you just want to keep learning more, and
100%.
it's kind of exciting, really.
It is.
So,
It's sort of it's a bit addictive, like
mm,
learning and like talking to other people. That's partly why I started this podcast, is to talk to people like yourselves from all different aspects of sport and coaching, and try and learn a little bit more, and try and help people out there who are also into coaching learn. And I think it's really, really good to hear off people such as yourself. And I guess another thing, it's admirable that you've been to 3 Olympics, you've coached at an Olympics, you've got elite level athletes, and you're still trying to learn and develop your skills further, rather than just saying, I've already done it. I've got the knowledge already. I can just sit back and relax on what I already know, and you're just continually improving.
Look, I think you have to continually look at new things that are evolving. Science is evolves all the time, and even to the thing which we spoke about earlier, the hamstring strength and the protocols that are in place now compared to my time as an athlete. It's just staggering how far that's come, and the research involved in that. And it's the same in every area. So there's just so much out there to look through and keep trying to improve. And as I said, I just love it. Yeah. And I just want to keep helping the athletes that I work with and just keep becoming the best, I guess, coach I can be for them.
Yeah, great. Well, Andrew Murphy, thanks so much for your time. Send my best to Liz and the family. I look forward to hopefully seeing them again soon. I think the last time I bumped into you was at Sutherland in a cafe somewhere in the sort of thing. But all my best, and congratulations on a great coaching step with Rohan at the Olympics, and all the best for the future. And I'm looking forward to keeping an eye on what you're doing.
Yeah, sounds good, James. Have a chat anytime, mate.
Awesome. Thanks so much, mate. Take care.
Pleasure, bud. See you, mate.
See you, mate. Bye-bye.